Hi, I'm Amy Cardoso and welcome to Art This Week. On this week's episode, we visit the Kimbell Art Museum and our interviewer, Daniela Cruz, speaks with curator Jennifer Casler Price about their exhibition, Balenciaga in Black. Now for Art This Week. Hi, I'm here with Jennifer Casler Price at the Kimbell Art Museum to talk about the exhibition Balenciaga in Black. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, and I'm so pleased to be here today.
Well, the exhibition is focused on Balenciaga's use of the color black and how it enabled the form and design to really speak with a timeless simplicity. Can you talk about curating the show and how the exhibition came to life?
Sure. So this exhibition actually was in Paris a year ago, summer before last, and our deputy director, George Shackelford, was in Paris with his three college-aged nieces, and rather than dragging them to the Louvre, he dragged them to an exhibition at the Musée-Bordel, which is a sculpture museum, and they were hosting this exhibition, Balenciaga in Black. And he was really impressed by the exhibition and the concept of focusing on the color black, and obviously the garments themselves, and just, you know, what Balenciaga means to the world of fashion and the legacy that he's left behind. And it just happened that a team from the Paris Musée, which is the sort of umbrella over all the museums in the city of Paris, came to visit. And I think they were pitching ideas about other traveling exhibitions, and he said, what about Balenciaga in Black? And that's kind of how it all came to fruition. Thankfully, or I'm thankful that he decided to make me kind of the in-house curator to work with our team from Paris, which included the Balenciaga Archives and the Palais Galliera, which are the two main lenders to the exhibition. And I just think that in the end, what we've had is what I think is a perfect marriage of art and architecture and fashion.
Absolutely, the exhibition looks really wonderful, especially in this space. So
Thank you.
Balenciaga was born and had his first house in Spain. Can you talk a little bit about his upbringing and how he got into fashion?
Sure, it's a really interesting story because he was born in a very small village in the Basque region of Spain, a village, Getaria, sort of on the northern coast of Spain. He was born not into a wealthy aristocratic family, you know, rather modest family. His father was a fisherman, but he was also the mayor of the town. His mother was a seamstress. Sadly, his father died in a fishing boat accident when Balenciaga was quite young, maybe around 9 or 10. So his mother raised him. She taught him to sew at a very young age, and then she was employed by a marquesa, the Marquesa de Casa Torres, who was a member of aristocracy, Spanish aristocracy, and lived in a wonderful house up on the hill. And Balenciaga's mother was hired to do sort of laundering and sewing and whatnot. And so Balenciaga, again, at this very young age of 10 or 11, was introduced to the Marquesa, who I guess took a shine to him, took him under her wing, and really exposed him not only to fashion and to the wonderful haute couture fashions that she obviously had in her possession, but also to the culture of her world, which includes paintings by Spanish masters and art and antiques. And this is where he really learned a lot more in depth about Spanish culture and tradition, sort of high culture. He, at a young age, already had, you know, sewing and cutting and tailoring skills to the extent that he was able to go to San Sebastian and get a job in kind of the high-end department store there, Au Louvre, where he eventually became the head seamstress in the tailoring department. And this is really critical to Balenciaga's work in general, and why he is such a genius, and why he's, as Christian Dior says, he's the master of us all. because of this training in tailoring, he knew how to cut fabric, how to sew fabric, tailor fabric, drape fabric. He really had an incredible sensibility about the different properties of fabric, different textures, how they moved, how they felt, how they reacted in light. And this is very much what's focused on in the show, being all about black, because you think, well, how can you see all of that in black? But in fact, there's many shades of black. That's one of the things that is explored in the exhibition. But it was that combination of his early training in sewing and tailoring, the exposure from the Marquesa to high art and culture, and then also just tapping into his Spanish heritage and into the heritage of traditional Maja dress with the lace mantilla and Montero, to the bullfighters' costumes, the traje de luces, the jacket of lights, even peasant outfits. There's a piece here on the platform behind us that actually has a little shawl with tassels on it that very much looks like a peasant shawl, but very much is not.
Right.
So coming from really modest means, if it were not for that confluence of things and some sad, tragedies, but then happy circumstances brought him into the world of haute couture, a world that he may never have been a part of, if not for that.
Although all of the dresses in the show are black, there's such a nuance within the fabric, and he used different embellishments like lace, embroidery, beading, as well as pops of color to really enhance his designs. Can you talk about those uses in some of the dresses?
Sure. So Balenciaga, really in his choice of fabrics, he was very cognizant of the feel of the fabric, the texture, the hang, the weight. And he chose these fabrics accordingly, depending on what he was trying to achieve in the line, the silhouette, the proportion, the balance in any particular garment that he was designing. If you go around the show, and I've learned a lot about fabric, but you've got crepe de chine, you've got satin, you've got taffeta, silk, cloquet, falconet, lace, all these different, and all in black, but all with different values in terms of how the light reacts with them. So some of them are matte, some are shiny, some are transparent, some are opaque. He really liked playing off of those contrasting textures. Again, the idea of, actually in Latin, there's not just one word for black, there's two. So Niger is the shiny, brilliant black. It's the black of royalty and power. And then Ate, which is matte, which is the more kind of somber black of mourning. He really manipulated these fabrics to create whatever illusion or whatever effect that he was trying to achieve. So for instance, in taffeta is a fabric that's really stiff and crinkly. And when you sew it and mold it in such a way that you get these really deep crinkles and curves, it almost looks like a carved piece of sculpture. There's a dress in the exhibition, a little cocktail dress, that's fairly simple, but just in the whole way that he has literally kind of, I say sculpted, but it's really in the cutting and the sewing, but it looks like a piece of carved sculpture. Other pieces where the crepe is just flowing like a waterfall, and just the way that he could drape that around the female form, and then also with the seaming, which is almost like seamless, except there are seams there. So really his manipulation of fabric, and the fact that for him, black was more than a color. It was a matter. It had texture. It had a life of its own, depending on the fabric. And so he explores all of that in the various garments. And those are kind of some of the themes that are explored in the exhibition. So whether it's about structure, draping, transparency, Black in color, where he wants to offset the kind of austerity of black with a little pop of color. In this exhibition, we explore black and white and black and pink, black and white, where he's referencing kind of the stiff white cuffs and collars that you would see on royal and aristocratic dress. Pink was a favorite color of his from the Matador's stockings, the bright pink stockings, but these blush pinks where it's just, you know, the barest hint of a ribbon, or just barely you can see the top of a bandeau of again, a crepe column, and this little hint of pink kind of teasing you a bit. Probably the most outstanding is the abstract pieces, where this is really kind of towards the end of, well, when he's getting ready to close his house in '68 in Paris. And I think he is aware that, well, I'm getting ready to close shop. I'm just going to go out there and do whatever I want to do. And maybe he's one of those rare designers that kind of had the courage to do that. He wasn't following trends. He wasn't trying to be necessarily a trendsetter even. He just wanted to experiment and push the envelope as much as he could. And so there are two dresses, really iconic dresses in the exhibition in the abstract volumes, where he's doing just that, not only in the form of the dresses, but he's able to do it because he's using a fabric called gazar that he actually had specially made for him by a Swiss textile firm. And it's a fabric that is at both times firm and yet fluid. So literally he can form and sculpt the fabric to give you, you know, 4 sharp corners on the inverted triangle dress that's just held up by 4 straps, to something that again is more kind of sculptural and 3-dimensional in the cabbage dress with the drape that pulls up into a hood. Gives you all the shadows and the depth with the light, but again, you could only do that with this gazar material that was difficult to work with, but somehow he was able to manipulate it and make it do what he wanted it to do. It's really extraordinary.
It's so amazing to think about the creations that he made, like you talked about, some of the more abstract forms, thinking about how he was really ahead of his times, not really addressing the body and going for a more transformative silhouette, if you will.
I think that's a really, I like that. I'm going to steal that, transformative silhouette. And I'm glad you mentioned about the body, because his ideas of the female form were really very different from the prevailing ones of his time, certainly in the 50s and early 60s, where a lot of designers were doing very form-fitted suits and dresses and silhouettes. He actually wanted to draw attention away from the waist. He always wanted to draw attention sort of up to the neck and the head. He's known for his collars that kind of stand up and out away from the neck so that your attention is focused right here. He loved doing draping in the back so you could see the back, the nape of the neck. You know, other silhouettes where the baby doll dress, or some of his coats, the barrel line, where literally it's floating away from the body. It has really no relationship to the body other than being anchored at the shoulder line and with that very strong neck, but the rest of it is, you know, just kind of out to here, so you don't really have a sense of the female body beneath. And that's very true with the triangle dress, but also it was kind of a philosophy of his, I think, that he said this about his clothes, that a woman didn't have to be, you know, have a perfect body to wear his clothes. The clothes would do that for them. But again, I think for him, it wasn't about the woman's body, it was about the clothes. And it was about the details. And it was all in the details. And I think what I learned so much from working with the team from Paris over the last 2.5 weeks, and to have them show me all these details, some of them hidden, you know, underneath the garments to give that volume or that silhouette. And then some of them hidden in plain sight in the way the darts are done or the seams are done. It's truly I mean, he was a fashion genius, and his clothes are classic and timeless, but innovative and modern at the same time. You could wear any of these pieces and you know, you'd be fashion forward and you would look fabulous.
Yeah. Well, there does seem to be such a wide array of his works and different pieces that he created. So thank you so much for speaking with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and I hope everybody comes to see the exhibition.
Definitely.
We want to thank Jennifer for speaking with us. For more information on the exhibition, go to kimbellart.org. That's it for Art This Week. Thanks for watching.
I still got your Polaroid.